A subscriber sent me this video. Speaking of videos, give this video a like or dislike, leave me a comment, interact, yeah, tease the algo, you know the deal. Anyway, the subscriber sent me this video and I just had to respond to it because it's something that I have talked about in the past, and it's um, something that I've also been thinking about as of late. Anyway, this is a video by We've Read the Documents, where they talk about Donald Trump displaying the double-headed eagle, right? Which they later said was a mistake. I mean, let's not even get into all that. Like, if you think it's a mistake, then you're just lost. Anyway, the double-headed eagle is something that I talked about on another channel in another video, saying that it's, you know, the East versus the West, right? The Holy Roman Empire in the East and Byzantium in the West, right? And the context in which I talked about that was the context of the Russian coat of arms, which has that double-headed eagle, as you'll see in just a second, and then some, right? But this is a Masonic symbol that basically signifies a certain kind of dialectic, right? East versus the West. False dialectic, in my opinion. It's order out of chaos. It's divide and conquer, right? It's to some degree true, but it's also a means by which they control us and brainwash us, right? It's also Donald Trump's emblem in his family crest or whatever that is he created over there. It's also what Albert Pike displayed proudly, as a lot of Masons do, right? It's Pike being the guy who predicted World War 33 and the two previous ones, right? He was just a prophet. You know what I mean? So Albert, would that be a Germanic name by chance? Look, as if I hadn't stated this in the past, when I talk about, nationalities in these types of videos, I'm really talking about the elites. And ultimately, they don't really believe this stuff, right? But they do have a certain common point of origin, and for better or for worse, this is what it is, right? Germanic, Semitic, however you define it, Phoenician, right? Depending on how far back in history you want to go, Saxon, right? These are certain, it's seafaring peoples, right? And throughout various times in history, they've assumed different names because they're shapeshifters, right? Uh, in most recent history, they became Prussians somehow, right? When Prussians were Balto-Slavic people, all of a sudden, everyone today thinks that Prussians were somehow Germanic. No, Prussians were Balto-Slavs that were ethnically cleansed and infiltrated, and their name was stolen by Germanics. Just like Germania, right? Which, in my opinion, has to do with the Germane, right? Autochthonous native people of Europe, right? The Japhetites became somehow the Deutsch, right? Became known as the Germane people of Europe. Why? Because they're shapeshifters. They came there later and they conquered, right? The Vikings were the tribes of Dan, right? That's why their language sounds like Hebrew, right? It didn't come from Hebrew, but it has a common origin, which is why German sounds Semitic, right? Right? But they've shapeshifted successfully and infiltrated various different cultures, assuming their identity, and the language changed, right? But the French still kind of talk like that, you know what I mean? The Franks. And a lot of the uh, older languages in the British Isles and some of the dialects in the British Isles still talk like that, right? That's who these people are. And the British Isles, as we know, right, were conquered by the Vikings and the Roman Empire, one and the same. Right? Russia was conquered by the Vikings. They came to the United States, right? They discovered, quote unquote, discovered America before any other European supposedly discovered America, right? So it's the Vikings, it's the tribes of Den, it's the seafaring peoples, it's the Semites, right? Who have infiltrated a whole bunch of different cultures and divided and conquered them. So I talked about this coat of arms of Russia, which is just a recycling of the Byzantine emblem, right? Uh, and it's signifying again the eastern wing of the Roman Empire and the western wing of the Roman Empire, aka Holy Roman Empire, aka Holy Roman Empire of the Germanic people, aka the EU versus the Soviet Union, with the crown above them all. And what's the crown? Well, the crown is the crown, right? Corona. What is the crown? Well, it's those people who control the money, right? The city of London, and and in some way, shape, or form, the British crown, they're still involved. Um, it's it's the crown, right? The people that exited out of this mess before it all started, right? Because they're above it. They Brexited. Though that's the crown, right? They want to be quote unquote neutral. So anyway, um, there are people out there who will tell you that these are just ancient symbols that are appropriated by various cultures and they don't mean the same thing. Well, I mean, yeah, there's like the, you know, vernacular, I guess you would say, or the man on the street versions of all these symbols, right? Just like Freemasonry has uh, public outreach and they're out in the open and they present themselves as like do-gooders and all this other stuff. But then there is a superstructure or the shadow, the part of Freemasonry that's in the shadows, and they believe different things and they do different things, right? So yeah, there might be uh, various interpretations of these ancient symbols provided for public consumption, but ultimately uh, there's something to this, and to the people that are in charge, right? All those, and a lot of them seem to be related, or we know they are, right? They have a wholeheartedly different meaning. So yeah, obviously there will be double meanings. But anyone who tells you to completely dismiss the fact that Trump displayed this, and this is what's been displayed forever, right? Since the Phoenicians, that Hitler displayed this bird, right? That the flag of Mexico has this bird. That you see the symbolism all over the place, or the Saint Michael in the middle there, right? Wearing a cape as if it were wings, slaying the snake or the condor on the Mexican flag, killing a snake. I thought they just ate dead animals, right? But maybe I'm wrong about that, right? It's not an eagle or a condor. It's the phoenix that's just being appropriated or presented to the local population so that they accept it as their own when it's not. And to the people that rule us, it has a wholeheartedly different meaning, right? So yeah, there is a double meaning to all that stuff. But if ostensibly you would think, right, the British crown is against Russia, right? Their enemies supposedly, and yet the Saint Michael slaying the snake unites them all on some level, right? Or the dragon, however they re-image this thing, it's the yoke that they've put on us. So, as I told you guys, I won't be recounting the whole story over and over again, but if you remember my experience with waking up in the middle of the night with the snake sleeping right next to me, cuddling up with me, if you will, at the same time, when I was considering this imagery of Saint Michael slaying the dragon or the snake, wondering about what that is, well, right then and there, perhaps, or more so lately, it's become clear to me, right, that the snake, well, means a lot of different things. It means the indigenous people of Europe that these invaders slaughtered, crusaded, right? Whether it was the what later became Roman Catholic Crusades, or that part of the Roman Empire, or it was the Byzantine Crusades, right? The kind of genocide that they carried out. Um, the snake are the indigenous people of Europe, right? They're the Gnostics, the people that knew, they had knowledge, right? They had to be exterminated, infiltrated. The knowledge had to be taken away from them. They had to be brainwashed in order to be controlled, right? It's the snake in the Garden of Eden, right? Telling us to eat from the tree of knowledge. It's Prometheus coming and giving us fire, right? Technology, knowledge that has to be taken away from us so that we could be dominated and controlled, brainwashed, right? By this divide and conquer strategy of the Roman Empire, who, to how a lot of us understand it, are fighting against one another, but ultimately, as a lot of us don't understand, are joined at the top by a different superstructure, if only in an ideological sense. I do think there is a figurehead, and maybe and I do think that it's the city of London, right? And the Queen, the British royal family also have some power still left, a lot of power left, right? But it's that whole power structure, and it's an ideology, right? Ideology of world domination, right? So this is just a false dialectic designed to divide and conquer and destroy us and bring order out of chaos. So there will be chaos for a while, war, and these two wings will fight each other, right? They are bickering, right? This is Cain and Abel in a sense. And then ultimately we'll get, well, that's what they hope, right? We'll get order out of all this chaos, because yeah, there's egos, there's people who don't like each other, and yeah, there's various warring factions, and everybody wants to rule the world, right? Every Indian wants to be the chief. So yeah, they are fighting, but they're using us to fight for them, and ultimately one crown will rule them all. One ring will rule all of us, right? When the dust finally settles. Sorry about the dogs, but also in this video, they talked about how the meaning of the name Donald Trump in Gaelic, right? Go listen to the Gaelic language, right? Go listen to what it sounds like, right? Yeah, I thought so. Anyway, real quick before we get into the meaning of what's in the title of this video. This is blasphemy, right? Donald Trump. These people present themselves as men of God. Putin does, Donald Trump does, but ultimately they are false prophets, right? They are of Satan. I've provided plenty of evidence for this. And then there's Christians out there who seem to have been possessed by Satan, right? I provided evidence of this, and I got slammed for it, right? There's Christians out there who seem to believe, they might not come out and say it, but they seem to believe that Putin is fighting some kind of a holy war. He has like God's warrant, and God is supporting him in murdering all these innocent people, right? That's what they believe. They might not outright say it, but that's the direction they're moving into, right? Because they've let Satan in, and they're lost, right? And then they think that these people are their savior in some sense, right? It's all blasphemy. It's all nonsense. Okay, it and this is perfectly exemplified by whether it was Byzantium or Vatican ultimately, what they've done, right? I mean, both of those churches were built on just countless slaughter and murder of innocent people, right? I'm not talking about Jesus Christ. I'm talking about people who did this in Christ's name, right? The same people that are now telling you that, you know, a different Christ is coming and his name is Donald or Putin, right? These are these are devils, man. They've subverted religion a long, 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 long time ago, and they brainwashed a lot of people with this different version of religion by taking away, destroying knowledge, like the Book of Enoch, right? The Ortho Church, the oldest Orthodox church, which probably was already subverted to some degree, but the oldest one, Ethiopian one, accepts that as part of the canon, right? Whereas these other ortho churches that came later, right, but they're still the right way, ortho, right? They are the law, the correct way, right? Forget the fact that they disagree on a whole bunch of different things, right? They're now telling you that no, that book that the oldest Christianity accepts as part of the canon is not part of the canon, right? They've been slowly taking knowledge away from you, and they call that Gnostic, right? That's knowledge. You can't have that. That's what they're saying, right? And that's, again, the snake in the Garden of Eden. The Bible has been rewritten, right? And who knows what the original, we don't know what was in the original Bible, right? And I question if that's even, some of it I think is Word of God, but a lot of it probably it's just been subverted, in my opinion, right? So again, that's Prometheus, that's the snake in the Garden of Eden, giving people knowledge. You can't have that. Gnosticism bad, knowledge is bad. You got to kill the snake, right? That's what they do. They brainwashed us with this. They've brainwashed us to fear the snake, using our primal intuition, right? Because the snakes can be dangerous too, right? Just as they're brainwashing you right now with this Stu Peters stooge, right? Saying that, oh, it's snake venom, right? Bringing back this imagery and scaring the shit out of people, and using religion, right, to reinforce this idea that snakes are bad, right? It's the snake that's been killing you. It's not a virus, it's snake venom. I don't know if you guys seen that fucking nonsense, but I mean, like, if you can't tell, just by, people want to reject intuition, destroy intuition. It's just another way of knowing. It's Gnosticism, intuition. We have these powers, people. Those of us that still acknowledge their existence. You could tap into these powers. When you watch this Stu Peters stooge, you can you not feel it? Can you not sense it? The evil emanating from that man. You can't? Then I'm sorry. You've lost your abilities. Maybe you never had them. It's obvious. To me, anyway. So anyway, religion's been subverted, which is why you have people who call themselves Christians supporting this war. That's only going to speed up the Great Reset and bring about all these things that they said themselves they're against. Clearly, Satan has crept into their heart and they can no longer speak the truth. It is what it is. And what it is dead weight, ballast. Right? Right. If you can't change the people around you, change the people around you. So in this video also they talk about the meaning of the name Donald in Gaelic, and all that it means is world ruler, which coincidentally is exactly what Vladimir means. Now, they have this, well, because they speak with the forked tongue, these devils, right? They'll tell you that Mir in Vladimir means peace, right? But that's a newer meaning. Mir means world. That's the original. Well, maybe not the original, but that's older than peace. And I mean, looking at Vladimir right now, we could basically dispense with, the latter meaning, right? Like, that's just, come on, let's not be idiots. Clearly, that doesn't apply to this Vladimir. But Vladimir comes from Valdemar, right? Which is, well, a Viking Germanic name. Valde meaning power, rule, right? Mar meaning what? Well, it probably comes from Proto-Indo-European mori, body of water. Today in Spanish, you still say sea is mar, right? Maritime, marine, maritime law, right? The corporate law that created these so-called countries, which really are just corporations, right? Maritime law that deals with corpses, mori, morir, to die, be dead, yeah? Anyway, so Valdemar, right, originally probably just meant the ruler of the sea because these are seafaring people. But once they came onto land and assimilated, infiltrated the Japhetites, right, the people that came into Europe over land and got there first, at least settled most of Europe first, right? Well, Mar, the rulers of the sea, well, because they're ambitious, whereas the sea was the world to them, well, they've expanded, right? And it's become the whole world. So Valdemar meant the ruler of the sea, but once it became Vladimir on land in Russia, it became the ruler of the world, which is exactly what Donald means, right? This is how these people have infiltrated and assimilated various cultures, right? Or you mean to tell me that Donald and Vladimir, it's just a coincidence that these names mean the same thing? That they both fly the same symbolism? They display the double-headed eagle, right? They talk as if they were godly men when anyone who is of God, the good God, not Satan, understands that they're not that at all, and that in reality they are the snakes, but they've inverted everything and painted us as the snakes that must be exterminated, right? They think themselves to be God. It's it really comes down to how you interpret Christianity, right? Ultimately, that's what it comes down to. So the guy, angel, whatever he was, right, that gave people fire, that gave us knowledge, right? He became evil. That doesn't make any sense, does it? Not from our perspective, but from their perspective, it makes perfect sense, right? That's why they told us, well, that was Satan, right? Or Lucifer, the bringer of light. How the fuck do you get Satan from Lucifer, or Lucifer from... How the fuck do you get that? Well, Satan just means adversary, and Lucifer means the bringer of light, right? That's how they confused us. They took knowledge away from us. Killing the snake. And they rub it in our faces now. Dividing and conquering us. Anyway, at least ways I see it. Maybe you have a different opinion. Oh, would you look at that? The Weimar Republic. Huh. Imagine that. Anyway, that's all I gotta say, man. You let me know what you think.